Hi guys, the Forgetful Skull. Let's chat about books, or a book. One book this week, and I'll explain why later. So this week is like, oh, brothers. Okay. So it's a FM historical romance, Only With Your Love by Lisa Kleypas. I don't even know. Okay. This was pirates, so that's why I picked up, because I've been in like a piratey mood. And for pirates love story, it was pretty good. I will say I do not like love triangles with family members. Like, I don't like it. And it always seems to be like one girl torn between two brothers. I hate that. I think it's icky sticky and I do not like it. But that is my personal opinion. If that's your jam, cool. We don't judge here. I'm just saying, you know. And when I was okay. So let's start from the beginning. So it opens with our heroine Cecilia and her husband Felipe. And they're traveling from France to New Orleans. And France is where he finished his medical training with her family. And Cecilia right off the bat is very shy. We get the sense that she's shy. And they haven't consummated the marriage yet. And I was like, oh, okay, it's going to be one of those. I kind of knew, then I was like, oh yeah, he's totally dead. Because they didn't boink. So obviously he's not the hero. Because that's just how romances go. And I will say this book was released in 1992. So this is like one of the earlier Lisa Kleypas's. So, you know, excuse me. So I will, you know, say that. And I was kind of expecting, you know, oh, my throat's so bad today. Because of that, I was expecting like maybe more, because when you read older romance novels, you have to understand that there wasn't like all these sub-romance sections before, like dark romance, things like that. So sometimes the older romance novels, or the bodice rippers as they were called, can get a little dark romancy without warning, you know? So I was kind of, I was expecting that, stuff like that. I was like mentally prepared for that, you know what I mean? And then their boat that they're taking to New Orleans is boarded by pirates. Cecilia kills one of the pirates, because good for her, because she's terrified. Felipe left her in the room with a gun with one bullet, and he's like, you know what you have to do. So I was like, kill herself? Like, I was really like, huh? So she's holding the gun to her head, and trigger warnings and everything, and she just couldn't do it. But she could kill one of the pirates. So I was like, ooh, I like her. Because we all know I'm bloodthirsty and I love it. So there we go. So she's dragged off the boat from the pirates, and she's basically going to be given to this pirate's younger brother. She sees Felipe's like dead body, and he gets pushed overboard. So I was like, okay, you know, I mean, I knew he wasn't the main guy because they didn't boink. So I was like, okay, you know, sad. In the first chapter, I was worried they were going to villainize him, or was I expecting, you know, for them to villainize him, that it turns out their marriage wasn't real or something like that. You know what I mean? Because he seemed kind of perfect from the get-go, right? So she thinks he's dead. She's inconsolable. The pirates drag her to this island where they're going to give her to the pirate's brother, who enjoys torturing the women he gets to death. You know, it's pretty gruesome, pretty horrible. And while they're there, another pirate crew is sort of wetting their whistle at that post, and he's called Griffin. And he's like he feels bad for her, but he wasn't really gonna intervene, because it would probably have meant like an all-out brawl between his men and the other pirates guys, right? And he didn't want to lose any of his men. Okay. I knew he was, because obviously he's like the hero of the story, right? So we expect some tropes, you know. It's romance. It's fine. So she kind of escapes, and he's happy to see that she's not completely cowed, but she doesn't get out of the tavern, and she's like, please, my name is, I forget the last name. My husband Felipe, he was killed, and then Griffin kind of freezes up, and I was like, oh, so he knows them. And then there was context clues. So by chapter 2, I was like, oh, they were brothers. And I was like, no, that can't be. That's too early in the story for me to figure that out. Lisa Kleypas is a renowned author. No way would she give so many clues right in the beginning. No, come on. I was wrong. She did. And I will say, for this one, because a lot of times with Lisa Kleypas, the men, the heroes, are told to us that they're badasses. We don't see them being badasses. Did I lipstick on my teeth? No, it's just the shadow. Sorry. Yeah, did I get too close? Sorry. Yeah, so usually we just are told they're badasses. We don't actually see them being badasses. You know what I mean? Like we're told he's a big, scary mobster guy, but the first scene he gets beat up, or he doesn't deal with someone that almost raped like stuff like that. But in this, we see him being a badass. We see Griffin, fight with, a dagger to the death by this guy that like towers over him to get Cecilia. And Griffin's not saying why he wants her, and stuff like that. So we see him in a physical fight, and I'm like, okay, cool. We're getting to visually see that he's a badass, and his first mate's totally like his hype man. You know what I mean? But the pirate that killed her husband is like, no, she still gets a night with my brother, and then you can take her. So that leads Griffin to killing the gross, abusive brother. They're both gross, but and stealing Cecilia. And he's very, like, not saying why for a long time. And I'm, like, internally, like, please don't let them be brothers. Please don't let them be brothers. They're brothers. It turns out twins. And I was like, what? Like, that really, really threw me for a loop. And that's when I realized this guy has to be one of her earlier ones. Because when they describe Felipe, they say black hair, blue eyes. When they describe Griffin, same blue eyes, but sable hair and twins, and that they, there's parts where, and he has a beard, so they don't look alike. I'm like, if they're identical twins, they would have the same hair color, but if they're fraternal twins, then they would just look like siblings, because that's just siblings, you know what I mean? So the way she described the twins was really confusing to me, because like, she didn't realize that that was the brother, and that they were until late. Like, it was really weird. It wasn't, I don't know, that one fact really took me out of a lot of this story. And I was like, maybe it made sense. And the thing is, I like Cecilia. Usually I don't like the female in these kinds of stories. But I don't blame her. She saw Felipe's dead body. She didn't know Griffin was a family member, was his, like, Felipe's brother. I feel like she's completely blameless in this, you know what I mean? Even though later on in the book, she gets a lot of accusations and things like that, which I kind of was like, yes, probably time, like the era that this book was set in makes sense, but man, fuck all of you, you know what I mean? I lost my train of... Fuck all of you. Okay, there we go. No. So, yeah, I don't blame her. It wasn't like she's torn between two brothers and she can't just decide between the good one and the bad boy. Oh, no. It wasn't that shit. I hate that shit. And it wasn't that shit. So thank goodness for that. So, I don't blame her. I feel like there should have been more angst on Griffin's side. His real name is Justin, but for less of a confusion, I'm just going to continue to call him Griffin. So I think on Griffin's side, there should have been more like, shit, I can't believe I'm attracted to my dead brother's wife. Like, this is her. I didn't feel like there was enough internal angst for that at all. So she's pretty, like, it was just, it kind of made, I don't know, sometimes it seemed like he was just like a emotionless beast that just wanted sex. Like, it was just really strange. And I'm not saying the whole book, I'm not saying a lot of it. It's just like, I wanted more internal conflict when it came to falling in lust first and then love with your brother's widow. Like, you know what's going on, Griffin. You know the whole thing that's going on. So there should be more of a like, oh man, this is horrible. You know, I don't feel like there was enough of that for me to be like, okay, he totally self-tortured himself about it. You know, I get it. You can't help who you fall in love. It's fine. There wasn't enough for me to have that train of thought, personally. I will say, like, at first, look, I thought about DNFing it, but like, I was like, no, they can't be brothers, no way. So I kept going until like I wanted to see the conclusion. Like, I needed to see how they pan this out. And I will say, for this book, I did give it 1 star. Normally for like brother triangle love stories, I would give it no star. But 1 star because I felt like the ending was very mature. It handled it in a really mature way. Everyone gets a happily ever after. You know, so there we go. And we see Griffin being a badass. We're not just told Griffin's a badass. So again, so that's the rating for this book. And then shock horror, Felipe is actually alive, even though he was stabbed through the chest, like, and like blood everywhere, and then he gets pushed into the ocean, even though he was unconscious and his body sinks, but somehow he's alive. I was like, that is some Illuminati soap opera bullshit. Cause I was like, cause like they're in the Caribbean, so like sharks, and he's bleeding, and like, I was like, okay, I guess you really wanted kind of a twist for like the third, fine, you know? So like I said, I think it was, the love triangle bullshit was handled really well, really mature. Cause shock horror, there was a woman that Felipe really loves, but he didn't feel like they were appropriate for his standing and family. She wasn't like the appropriate choice. And Cecilia, I really like, normally I hate the heroines in these kind of stories, but I really liked her. I loved her progression. I loved her emotions. I loved how, like, even sometimes she felt like she didn't know why she did that. You know what I mean? And I liked how in the end, she was not taking anyone's bullshit. You know what I mean? And she was still classy about it. Like, it didn't stray too much from her original base character that we first meet. So I really liked her. And that's probably one of the big reasons I kept reading this book. And she basically was like, look, bro, I love your brother. You love this woman. We never consummated. Let's get an annulment and be done with it. And he's trying to fight it, I guess, out of pride. I don't know. And I liked how the brothers really didn't hate each other. In this weird, difficult situation, like Felipe, like, obviously you jealousy and a bit of anger in the beginning, but then, you know, Griffin saves his life. Like, there's all this stuff where it's like, he didn't mean, like, they both thought Felipe was dead. You know what I mean? So it wasn't on purpose, you know, kind of a thing. So I did like the mature ending to it, which surprised me because normally, I hate these things. And there was a lot of action in it, especially for Lisa Kleypas. I liked seeing some badassness coming from, you know, Cecilia to Griffin. I liked that because, you know, bloodthirsty. But man, did this book put me in a rut. Like, I had time this week. For this week, I had time. I could have read another book. I could have read 2 other books. I just was in a rut, and I did not feel like reading anything else because this book was like, I was torn between hating it and being okay with it, and I don't know. You know, I think if you're a fan of she's torn between 2 brothers kind of a thing, I think you really, really enjoy this because, again, this is done really well. And I know that's a trope that people like. No judgy. It's just not my thing. And it just put me in a rut. So this is the only book this week. Sorry about that. I just couldn't. I didn't feel like reading anything. And I was just like, you know, I have to get out of the rut. So, fan fiction, here I come. So that's it for this week. I don't want too much time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.